Welcome back, everyone, to Mimi's Storytime. I'm a little bit congested still. I know you can probably hear me, and I'm sorry for that. I hope to be completely well soon. Um, Probably had a little touch of the flu, lots of coughing and fever and all that fun stuff, but I'm much better than I was, and I hope to be completely well soon. But it's good to be doing stories again, and I'm blessed that I can do this. So here we are, new story today. One of my favorites, Crickwing. I'm gonna learn how to put the title on there to where y'all can read it and it won't be backwards, but y'all can still see the picture. That's his name, Crickwing, and he's building like a little house of cards, but out of leaves and things. And this story is by Janelle Cannon. She is the author and the illustrator. So she writes this, she wrote the story and she drew the pictures. And I have to admit, she's probably one of my favorite illustrators. She's just so beautifully descriptive in everything that she does. She's also the author of Stellaluna, which is probably my top three favorite children's books. She's simply amazing. So I apologize for the congestion and continuing issues, but just stick with me and we'll read another beautiful story. So today is Crickwing. Now for those of you who don't like roaches, I don't either. This is a nice roach. Crickwing is a roach. So, but that's okay. We're going to get through this story together because thankfully this roach does not live in our house, so we're good. Our first story, let you get a good look of him, what he looks like. This is why he's called Crickwing. He has a wing going in the wrong direction. It's kind of like having a dislocated arm in this case. Far below the great forest canopy lies a shadowy world that many insects call home. Among the damp clutter of fallen leaves and branches, leaf-cutting ants toil all day while large cockroaches await their evening search for food. One cockroach had looked like all the others until a close call with a hungry toad. In his wild escape from the toad's sticky tongue, he had twisted one of his fine long wings. Since then, everyone had called him Crickwing. And there's the toad that tried to eat him. And he had to fly away and messed up one of his wings. Poor Crickwing. Crickwing despised his nickname, and he avoided hearing it by staying far away from the other creatures. He would sneak out to find his food when the night was darkest, knowing that the forest was crawling with predators even worse than ravenous toads. The forest seemed much less fearsome whenever Crickwing found a nice pile of tasty leaves, roots, and petals. He took comfort in their bright colors and interesting shapes, and he often built sculptures from them before he ate them. When he was busy playing with his food, he could almost forget the pain in his crooked wing. One night, Crickwing created his most wonderful sculpture ever. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't hear the soft footsteps behind him. But first, let's look at one of his little creations, because he plays with his food and makes sculptures out of them. Looks like a little mouse. So what are these soft footsteps behind him? Pow! Swoosh! A sharp-eyed monkey clobbered Crickwing and swiped his sculpture. Look, he took his little mouse meal And poor little Crickwing just pow! Knocked him out of the way to snatch his food up. Mean old monkey. Crickwing dived for cover. I only let him get away with that because he's so big, he grumbled, cowering under a rotten log. And look what that monkey did. He ate Crickwing's dinner. I apologize for having a drink on camera. I get dry so easily. Crickwing hid until the next night, when hunger drove him out to search for a meal. But as soon as he had added the final flower petal to his dinner, an enormous, scaly lizard nearly gulped him down. Crickwing dodged, and the lizard took off with his edible artwork. Here's that scaly lizard. I wonder, it looks like his maybe a radish with a face. That's so cute. And there's another little picture. Another masterpiece ruined, Crickwing panted. I'm starving and my wing aches. I don't know if I can take this much longer. The next night, things got even worse. An ocelot, which is a type of wild cat, pounced and nearly crushed Crickwing. When he darted away, the ocelot scooped him up in her massive paw and threw him high into the air. Oh no! Crickwing wailed. Not again! There's the ocelot. She's very pretty, but she's a little bit too rough. Poor Crickwing, he had to make a fast getaway. When he landed, Crickwing scrambled about in a panic and leaped into a crevice under a stone, where he collapsed in angry tears. I'm so tired of having to run from giant predators, he seethed. I hate being so small, and I hate never being able to finish a meal. I'm a mere exoskeleton. Through the long night, Crickwing's wing throbbed as he waited in his hideout. Poor Crickwing. And look, there he is, running into the crevice under the rock with that ocelot right behind him. And look, there he is laying on his side under the rock, and that ocelot's eyes are watching him. So we've got all kinds of creatures. A monkey, a scaly lizard, an ocelot have chased down Crickwing and tried to get him, or they've stolen his food. He's hungry, he's tired, and his wing hurts. Many hours later, sunlight streamed into his cave, and the leaf-cutting ants began another busy day. Thousands of the tiny workers carried large slices of leaves back to their colony. Crickwing, groggy and still angry, crept out for a better look. Ha! These guys are even punier than I am, he muttered. None of the ants seemed to notice him. So there's the ants, cutting their pieces of leaves and bringing them back to the colony. And there's Crickwing waking up. And remember, his wing is hurting, he's hungry, and he's mad about being chased around and having his food stolen. And there he is, standing and watching those ants, thinking that they're puny. Crickwing inched closer. There's something about these antsy critters that just bugs me. Why isn't anyone bothering these little twerps? He placed a spiny leg across the leafcutter path. Well, let's just see what happens now, he chortled. Have a nice trip. See you next fall. He's kind of being mean now, isn't he? And that's his putting his leg in the way of the ants. Oh no. The ant tripped. He's just minding his own business, carrying his leaf back to his colony, and Crickwing's being ugly to him. Several ants stumbled, but then went back to work as if Crickwing wasn't even there. This will get their attention, he growled, picking up a leaf from the path. The ant carrying the leaf hung on tight, which gave Crickwing a dastardly idea. He hung several ants from a vine, one by one, and watched with glee as their tiny legs flailed. Crickwing laughed so hard that he nearly forgot his aching wing. And there he is. He has hung them from a vine. They can't really do anything because they're hanging onto their leaves. And there's Crickwing, laughing himself silly. He's being a mean little bully. That night, Crickwing wolfed down a sweet flower bud, not even noticing its dazzling purple color. He had work to do. Right in the middle of the leafcutter trail, he dug a deep hole in the ground. Then he crouched behind a rock, waiting to see what the ants would do. And there he is. That's him digging the hole. Well, he's a good little digger. In the very early dawn, the ants rose as usual and went to work. When they returned, their cargo clamped in their jaws, they could barely see their way. They plummeted into the trap, piling into a great green heap. These muddling molecules are so easy to fool, snorted Crickwing. And there they are, falling into the trap that Crickwing dug for them. Poor little ants. There's a problem. I would say the big mama ant. She's now involved, and look, now she's talking to all her regular sized ants, her children. Back in the leafcutter colony, the queen of the ants called a meeting. This week's production is down, she barked. What on earth is going on? It's a cockroach, your highness, stammered Tara. He's picking on us, added Gravel. No cockroach meddles with our colony. Seize him, ordered the queen. Oh boy. The next morning, the ants found Crickwing fussing with his latest ant trap. He had no chance for escape as thousands of leafcutters swarmed over him, dragged him back to the anthill, and marched him down its dark, winding corridors. When the tunnels narrowed, the ants crammed Crickwing through one final tight spot. Pop! His wings snapped back into place, and he realized that the throbbing ache was gone. So they accidentally helped him. Before he could give it another thought, the ants pulled their prisoner into a chamber and buried him up to his neck. For hours, the whole colony filed by, whispering to one another. How do you think he became so awful? And his mother must be heartbroken at his behavior. So they brought Crickwing back to their colony. And they've buried him up to his neck. But they helped him, remember? His wing is back in place. That big oaf showed up just in time for the annual peace offering to the army ants. Well, that's not good, crowed the queen. There's no way they'll attack us if we hand this hefty no-gooder over to them. Truss him up like the fat turkey he is and ship him out. The leafcutters bound Crickwing. That means they tied him up, hauled him back through the dim tunnels of the ant colony, and carried him up into the forest. There they are, tying him up like a little package. And there he is. They're bringing him out to the forest. They're giving him to the army ants as a present. So they'll eat Crickwing and leave them alone. The ants hiked in silence for a long time. I can't do this, Eartha blurted at last. Neither can I, Tara shuddered. Remember the giant beetle we brought to the army ants last year? Yeah, they took him apart before we could even turn around and leave, quavered Gravel. Crickwing gulped. Nobody deserves that, not even this big bully, said Eartha. I say let him go. He never really hurt any of us. What will we tell the queen? Tara gasps. And what about the army ants? Gravel howled. They'll level our colony. I just can't watch them shred this guy, insisted Eartha. We'll figure something out on the way back. Let's go. So it looks like they propped him up to discuss what they were going to do. These pictures don't look real clear because they're pencil drawings, but they're really cute. All right, so they've decided they're not going to give Crickwing to the army ants because they know the army ants will eat him piece by piece. So they've undone him, and there he is in the background, and the ants are hauling off. Probably because they don't want to get eaten by army ants either. So they've released Crickwing and they fled. Crickwing was stunned. The queen was going to have their heads, and the whole leafcutter colony is now in serious danger, all because of me. Now that his wing no longer hurt, he could think clearly. I have to do something, but what? And then Crickwing had a brilliant idea. Wait, he yelled, racing after the leafcutters. I can help. Wait. He described his plan, and the ants listened carefully. We'll have to move quickly, but if every ant pitches in, I think it'll work, Crickwing said. Can we trust this yahoo? Yelped Gravel. Do we have much choice? Snapped Tara. The plan is worth a try, and we'll do our best to win the patience of the queen, Eartha promised, but we don't have much time. Jump on my back, all of you, said Crickwing. I am one fast runner. And this is hilarious, y'all. He is indeed a fast runner, and all the ants are hanging on as much as they can. In a far corner of the forest, in the army ant camp, the lieutenant paced angrily. Those leaf-eating fools are late, she snarled. If we don't have our peace offering by tomorrow at dawn, we march in and take what's rightfully ours. As the hours passed, the army ants grew more agitated. And look at this army ant. She's got some great big huge fangs. She's not very pleasant looking, is she? But kind of cool. They call them army ants for a reason. They take down whatever's in their path. At first light, the army swarmed from its nest, ready for conquest. No one, shouted the lieutenant. Absolutely no one keeps the army ants waiting. They poured like an angry river down the trail to the leafcutter anthill. As the ferocious ants turned the final bend, they stopped dead in their tracks. But first you need to see this trail of army ants. They're trailing from all the way back here. That's why they're called army ants. They march like an army. So they're right next to the leafcutter colony. They're not far from it. They've stopped dead. What has happened? For a long, silent moment, they stared at the hugest, strangest, greenest anteater they'd ever seen. It loomed high over them, its terrible tongue dangling from its mouth. That's a very ferocious looking anteater. And look, that's why they've stopped. There she is. That is a ferocious looking anteater. The lieutenant's squeaky voice broke the quiet. Halt! About face! Run away! The army ants tripped over one another as they scrambled back toward their camp, none of them daring to look back. They didn't want to get eaten. And there they are. They're running away as quickly as they can. I have to say that's a pretty ferocious anteater. Crickwing and the leaf-cutting ants peered from atop the leafy anteater's head, watching the warriors fade into the forest. They all held their breath until the entire terrified horde had vanished. Then the queen approached. I don't think we'll be seeing them ever again, thanks to you and your enormous sculpture, Crickwing, she said. Or should we call you Straightwing now? We need someone to help us keep this anteater in order. So I hope you will decide to join our colony. And I hear that you're an incredible chef. Oh, I just like to play with my food, Crickwing replied. And please call me Crickwing, your Highness. I would very much like to stay with you. The first thing I want to do is prepare a great celebration feast for everybody. But here is Crickwing and the ants watching the army ants run away from on top of the anteater. So now he wants to prepare a celebration feast. 3 cheers for Crickwing, shouted Eartha. All the ants joined the cheer, then rushed into the forest. They gathered the brightest flower petals they could find and cut them into sparkling bits. All night at the banquet, everyone threw flower confetti, danced the 6 step, and sang until sunlight came creeping through the trees. The queen peeked at the dawn and blinked drowsily. She was sleepy. I declare today a holiday, and she yawned. Hear, hear, said Crickwing, and for the first time in colony history, the leafcutters took a day off. And there's their little party. They threw flower confetti and had much fun. I hope that you enjoyed this story. I really do. I like it. You know, sometimes people can be really grumpy like Crickwing when they're in a lot of pain. And then sometimes bullies are that way because they were bullied themselves. And so they pick people that they know that are weaker than themselves and they bully them because that's all they know. In a perfect world, we all learn our lesson and hopefully become better people. Some people do, some people don't. The important thing is that you keep trucking on and doing your best. I hope you enjoyed this story. And I'm happy that Crickwing got his wings straight. Y'all have a wonderful day. I hope everyone has someone who will hug them and give them a kiss right on their forehead. Y'all have a wonderful day. and a wonderful night. Bye-bye.